you very much. I think we have had 3 very stimulating presentations. Very different approaches, but it all comes together. It's nice. I invite Qiqi, Jeroen, and Wim to take the stage, and then it's time for questions. And, okay, let's do the next slide. So we are now at the panel discussion, and the title is "Does Gaming Add Value to Water Management?" And I don't want to preempt the discussion. If you have questions, please make yourself known. And one of us, Jaap, is going to do the microphone. This is new technology. We refurbished the thing. Any questions? Yeah, first this gentleman here, and then Frank.
Yeah, my name is Hamidul Haq. I'm from Bangladesh. My background is sociology. I was thinking whether the people on the job, are tired of conceptual terminologies or jargons, and that convinced us to go for informal structure of teaching and education. One of my friends, he's bigger than me, and he's caught by diabetes. So he went to doctor or physician. So physician advised him to take 2 chapatis, and then he asked the physician, should I have it after meal or before meal? Thank you so much. So my main question was whether we are tired of all these conceptual terminologies in our education process, and that really convinced us to go for this kind of education structure. Thank you.
Thank you for this question. Anybody wants to comment? Wim?
Yeah. Well, I think the nice thing about the games and a game is actually that you don't ask participants about a concept, and you're not starting to explain a concept, but actually you ask the participants to solve a problem together in a certain setting, and then maybe afterwards in a kind of a debriefing you can reflect back to concepts, but initially a game is about solving a problem. People actively together trying to solve this problem from different perspectives.
Can I add something? Yeah, and I think a lot of times that we try to do is to try to make the people forget about the concept in the gaming. That's why the gaming is a new way of thinking. They should not just too focus on the science itself, but the gaming and play the game itself, to make them forget about the content and the concept in the game, but drag them out of the things to create it more ideas and more perspectives. I think that is the essence of why gameplay works.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Frank?
Yeah, I would like it. I always like to make bridges, so I would like to bridge between Wim and Qiqi. And want to start with your last question about the impact of gaming on policy analysis or decision making. So are there ways of monitoring the impact of gaming on decision making?
Thank you. Key question. Oh, yeah. So who is eager to answer this one? Qiqi.
I think I am, because I addressed the ground challenge, as I want to say in my presentation. I think that there's no precise way to think, okay, to think about gameplay is a kind of noodle machine. You push this button, and then you see there's immediately noodle produced and coming out. So gaming is definitely not this kind of machine or tool. But gaming is definitely only address, I think, long-term perspective and long-term thinking. So shall I put it in this way? We can think about it's like, okay, you believe in it, then it works. And the gaming only works with the people that believe in it, but not the other way around. So it's difficult to persuade the people that do not like to play game. That does not happen, that some people believe, and we tried a lot, but often the results turn out to be that if you do not like game, if you do not like this way of handling your problems or thinking, then it doesn't work. So the way to make it work is, okay, you like to play game, and the game only works to people that like to play it. And in this way, we can call it as like a butterfly effect. So if you believe this butterfly effect, then you will see, okay, maybe a local one little butterfly swing a little bit here can make a hurricane very, very far away. But if you do not believe it, you will not see it. So to conclude your question, I think it's no and yes.
But you also asked the question to Wim, eh?
I still want to follow up a little bit. Because I think in the end you also want to know what kind of game is specifically useful for what kind of situation. So I think it's important to have that monitoring tool.
Thank you, Frank. Anybody would like to comment on this comment of Frank? Jeroen.
I would like to add to her. I think for exact this same questions, about 2 or 3 different researchers at your group are doing research to be able to prove which type of game is best applicable to which type of problem. So it's being done.
And sometimes you don't need a computer. You can do it with a hula hoop. Wim, you want to comment?
No, my presentation was mainly about games and role and capacity development, and there we try to measure. I mean, to what extent you have learned, and to what extent you change your perceptions, or. But I think in policy development, it's an area for our institute, which is so I think it's a very interesting, and I would like to learn from these. Studies.
So in the meantime, I invite people, new hands. Last word for you.
Last word. I think any type of research will stay soft research, because if you really want to tackle decision-making problems, once you leave the abstract, there's no way to do a real A/B testing, because I think the essence of decision-making is that it's different every time, and the complexity is the thing you want to make clear. So I'm not sure whether it's ever going to be able to directly prove that gaming or any other way of decision-making assistance is going to concretely improve.
I have a question. Yeah, Ali, yeah?
Hi. I have the question for you mainly. You were talking about the balance between content design and software that you're using in your models. As much as I am the fan of your games, but I'm now a bit worried that when you're making this platform available for all of us to start making games, aren't you limiting the creativity of the game developers to these components that you're giving to us?
Well, I'm glad that you're the one being critical. I have to say, he's the first person outside our company to start facilitating our game, so we know each other. No, I don't think so, because we help you in thinking of creating those 3 elements, but there's nothing stopping you from moving away from that point. So it's purely as an assistance. Does that answer your question? So we add in the hooks to help you make sure you hit all the right notes, but there's nothing stopping you from moving away from those notes.
Okay, thanks. Jan?
I really believe in gaming in the future as a tool for serious learning. But maybe for people who join UNESCO-IHE and for the first time they are coming in contact of the water sector, and we introduce them into the complexity, I think it's a fantastic tool. If we go to a more kind of, may I say, serious gaming, then I think about applications. For instance, in the region where I'm quite often walking in and see the complexities that is in our region, for instance. This region, with all its problems, is so complex that I'm dreaming about, can we make a game so that we can support them in making decisions? But what is so crucial in the games I've played is that at a certain moment you reach a level where people say, sorry, but now I don't believe your game anymore because it gives a result which I do not trust. So, in other words, is in gaming the limitation not always that can you go beyond the understanding of the developers? So, you can never get more out. That is then my question. Can you get more out than you put in? And can you add complexity extra so that it will help decision making? Is that clear?
Yes. Who wants to answer? Jeroen.
I think one of the more important insights in the last few years is that the value of serious gaming for actual issues is not as much in the playing of the game as in the creation of the game. So, where in the past the developer, be it us, be it IHE, be it TU Delft, would make the game and then step out into, that's changed to a design where all the relevant stakeholders are adding to the model themselves. So if they don't believe it, they won't believe their own results. So everything they put in is put in by themselves. And I think that's the only way that you can make the consequences or the results within that game accepted.
Anybody would like to add? No? Any questions? Dano.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, please.
I'm not very sure whether my question fits here or whether it's too stupid, too simple. My name is Bert van Woersum. I'm working with the Warren Buffett Foundation and the Gates Foundation. Those foundations nowadays very much focus on wargaming in a specific context. Let me explain very briefly, just 1 minute. That is when you talk about, for example, agriculture and water management, there's a hell of a lot of knowledge and a hell of a lot of evidence. But so few of that knowledge and evidence is really being used in reality. If it were a private company, it would be odd. Neither Gates nor Buffett would accept that there's so much knowledge available and so few of that knowledge being used. So the real war game is how to influence policy. Not so much policy analysis, that's of course a first step, policy development, but the real wargaming is, in my opinion, is the policy influencing. Evidence as such doesn't automatically lead to policy change. There are a lot of other dimensions in it. To what extent is this kind of, let's say, war gaming, as we call it, part and parcel of your gaming approach?
Qiqi.
When it's too stupid, you
brain
just...
power here.
Huh?
Bert, thank you very much. Qiqi, we need your brain power here.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad to bring something. Yeah, I think this is really a practical question, and it's also what we want to address in serious gaming. And there's different ways to use it, and influence policymakers is definitely a very important dimension to use serious gaming. And you are absolutely true that I think in the real world there's a lot of fragmentation. So we do not lack of knowledge, but we are lacking of the integration of knowledge. Exactly. If you cannot bring and integrate, have this platform, you do not where the knowledge is, and how can you use them? But there's no absolute way or perfect way or best way to integrate knowledge, because I think the fragmentation is just the nature of the society. Our world is grow up and evolve in this way. But if you ever thinking about there can be a solution or can be approach to address this problem, what do you think that can be done? And I think that maybe gaming is the only way to address this issue. Because only in gaming that issues, interesting and things can be brought into a shared platform.
I'm glad you used the term wargaming, because I want to add to that. Or was it work gaming? Wargaming. Because what you imply there is that people want to win, and I think that's one of the strongest things in where gaming can add here. And if you accurately reflect reality within your game, yes, then what you can show is why it can be in people's own interest to start sharing that information. Because people will only start sharing information if they become better themselves. The people will only start shifting policy if they realize that it influences themselves positively. And that's why I think, and I agree with Qiqi, that gaming can show them, the right type of game can show them why they need to start sharing this information, why they need to start sharing the policy, and why the people who need to make this choice should actually do it.
In your games, you can even change the policies of the clients that have hired you to develop a game? Because that's also part of the Bet's question.
Could you rephrase it?
So, okay, there's this New York City or whoever is hiring you to develop a game. Yeah. And it's primarily perhaps for involving stakeholders and different stakeholder analysis and decisions. In this process, are you also able to improve and change the policies that were initially used to influence it of the client that hired you? Because that's your question.
Well, yes. No, I think what's important is that I'm not sure from a technical point. Yeah, of course, that's a whole reason for creating a platform solution instead of creating a non-platform solution. If you want to see if people are willing, if we as a company would be willing to change the policy of our clients, then I think you'd be very stupid if you're not willing to.
Okay, Wim, finally.
Somebody disagrees here. Okay.
So we need some disagreement here, otherwise it's...
Okay, oh, then it's good. Yeah.
Well, you talked about this knowledge sharing, and I agree with you that usually there is a lot of knowledge available in different parties, but indeed a kind of a game setting could help to bring these parties together and to jointly develop a kind of a vision and also to better understand why there is a need for sharing this information and what they could benefit from this sharing of information. So in that sense, I see a possible role for games in this process of bringing parties together, which I think is the first step in order to have data shared.
And actually, your example of the Mekong is the best example where the game, by taking the procedures very seriously, gaming it, leads to feedback to the Mekong River Commission to detail or to revise the procedures. So that is you see a very nice feedback there, and I thought it was a very interesting, convincing example. Dano.
Yeah, I'd like to ask the panel, maybe particularly Jeroen, but to think about the distinction between gaming and simulation. Usually the simulation, especially with the big complex problems, can take days on big computers, and the results can take months to digest and to report. So the real life is really boring, and you have to wait for months to get to the next step. And in your game, everything has to be flashy and responds within seconds. Do you see a way where these two worlds can let's say, grow towards each other? And are we going to live to see that day, or are you see, for instance, application of a serious game that has that is actually applied on a time scale of months instead of in a one-day session?
I think you're going to see several different things happening. First of all, due to the rapid development of hardware, it's going to be more easy to add the real complexity of simulations in there. But you'll never be able to, if you want to have a real life gaming session with the ability to rapidly iterate, there are going to be simulation models that are going to be too slow to be effective. But even then, you can make large cuts before you actually hit the simulation model, which already improves speed a lot. I know you can also play games over a larger course of time to adapt to that. What I wonder is whether I think what you'll be able to do there, it'll be really good for educational settings, for teaching, for experiencing. But if you want to add to the decision-making process and be able to rapidly make choices there, you'll have to make rough cuts. You won't be able to work with month-long simulations.
But couldn't you see it also as a way of formalizing the decision-making process, integrating structures in software, integrating procedures in software, including these more complex simulations?
Yeah, one of the things we didn't touch on is that you can of course use these environments as a kind of living document to constantly adapt to the changes. So I agree that you can do that, but I don't think that the largest strength of using the gaming aspect of serious gaming lies in the part that you're describing.
Anybody else would like, the panel would like to comment?
Of course, this reminds me an interesting point. In the research field, we often call it modeling simulation gaming, MSG. So they are definitely have some relation, but they are, to a certain extent, also very, very different, because modeling and simulation are really the tool in depth. So really need to very, very precise and analytical result. And gaming is a kind of tool in breadth. So it's really bring the different dimension into one thing. So one is here and one is there. And there's a lot of debating in the research field to see whether and to what extent we can combine these two. Some people might think never possible because they are just two dimensions. But to a certain extent, if we compromise each other a little bit, we might find a balance in between to take both the dimensions into a new dimension. So this is, I think, what the gaming research is trying to do.
Thank you, Qiqi. Are there still some urgent questions? Great. Rien, do you have a question? Okay. Rien is thirsty.
Well, it's maybe a final question then. Where does this end? For example, surgeons now, the best surgeons are the best gamers, I was told, by many academic hospitals. Are we entering in a situation that the best engineers are the ones that are gaming 1 hour every day? Are the best policymakers the ones that, you know, visualize and game a couple of hours and then go into the boardroom? Where does this end?
Oh.
We definitely encourage them to do that.
Who wants to take this challenge?
I really want to, but I've been taking them every one until now. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, where does it end? Now, I think that we should be careful by I mean, maybe we don't agree, but I think that serious gaming in terms of capacity building can be extremely important. In terms of policy development, I think we have to be modest. And I see a role for games in let's say, facilitating a kind of a planning process in which you try to link different steps in planning to let's say, a broader audience of stakeholders. And where you can also use, let's say, the game to get input from different stakeholders and in order to identify your strategies and your solutions. So where does it end?
I think there's one issue where I think we can raise ethical issues about these guys operating these drones. And perhaps they think that they are at one moment in a game environment, although they are bombing people away. So there is the other side of the equation. There it ends exactly near Obama. Okay, thank you very much. I want to. Sorry. Final famous last word.
I agree with him.
And Qiqi?
I think if we do encourage them, then we encourage them not the shooting game, but the Tygron's simulation game.
Yeah,
We should let them play the right game.
I think it ends that a lot of learning is going to be done by serious gaming. When you see the young ones now at school, learning mathematics, learning biology, it all goes by games. So we are facing a generation that comes for MSc, for PhD or whatever, that comes in with a complete different way of learning.
Thank you, Geet. I think we have to end here. I want to let's give the panel and the speakers a big hand of applause.